Hi everyone, welcome to Watercolor Wednesday. I am Bonnie Krebs, creator of Watercolor the Art Impressions Way. And this week's project is from Project Series 6. This is actually from Set 2. And I love this project series because it's just loaded with stuff. There's this really cute phone booth, these little tiny planters that come in it, this row of houses, cottages, and this really awesome door. I love this door. So I haven't done these images in a long time, and so I thought it's probably about time. So I picked this door, and we're going to use it in this project, as well as this little filler flower right here. We're going to use that one. In addition, we're going to use this little tiny foliage from the Blooming Birdhouse set, the stem, the branch from the clay pot set, and then of course our flowers and foliage. We're going to need some of these, so we're going to use the tiny little flowers here, the little wildflowers, and then we're also going to use the large grass and the vine. Okay, so let's get started. This is a really simple project. It's super fun to do. It looks difficult, but it's not. It's just like all the other projects that we do, super easy. Okay, so let's start by inking the basic image, and that would be the door. So we're going to ink that in the sepia. I'm just going to ink this whole thing up here with the sepia. This is that earthy color. You could also use the blue, so the African violet or a cool blue, you could use that also if you wanted the door to be mostly white. So I want it to be old and rustic, so I'm going to start with the sepia. Okay, so we've got our door on there. First thing we're going to do is dip our brush in water, pinch it off. You know, we always pinch our brush off, and we start by pulling the color out of the lines. This is always the first step. Super easy to do, just follow the lines. You don't have to get them all. Let's color in this little door plate here while we're at it. The little hinges, and just kind of follow these lines. You can see that I'm not being very careful with this, because we really don't need to. Let's pull some of this color up now in the boardwalk. So this little landing is wooden. So you remember, we don't want to drag our brush across these lines. We want to stay inside the lines. That makes a big difference because we don't want to lose the integrity of the image. And when we start dragging our brush across these lines, we're going to get a flat looking image, and we don't want that at all. Okay, so we've got the color pulled out of the lines. I'm going to take a little color now and add it to my palette. This is actually called sky blue, but you could use any light blue. And another color, this is called Prussian blue. And I'm just going to mix a couple of these together. And I want to put some color onto the structure because the door is not freestanding. It's going to be on a building. So let's just get a little color in here. Don't overthink this or add too much. We just want the idea of things, remember. Just the idea of things. Okay, I'm going to take my sepia pen, and I'm going to really darken this little doorknob. Leave a little highlight on it. Even though it's tiny, those things make a big difference. I'm also going to take some of this color now, dip my brush, and I'm just going to add a little detail to the windows. Just brush this in. This is really simple. Don't overthink this either. Just put a little color in here. We can always go back over it again, but this adds a lot of interest to the image when we get that done. Okay, let's move on. So let's add our foliage now, and that would be our vine. We're starting with our vine. So I'm going to add it to my medium-sized block here. And I'm just going to, actually, you know what? Let's do something different. Let's start with the flowers. I think that actually is going to be easier. So let's start with the flowers. These are the little daisies. Remember the tiny little filler flower. And I'm just going to ink this and stamp it about 4 times. So 4 separate places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember, we're going in a circle. And let's do it again. Let's put another one out here. Another one out here. That looks pretty good. We can probably add a little more in here. You can start with the foliage or the flowers. It doesn't matter. You can do either. Okay, so now we're going to add our water. Remember to leave some white spaces. We don't want to color this all in solid and make it a big blob. So we want to leave the texture of the image. Center that a little better there. And we've got our little flowers in there. Okay, so now let's add the vine. And I don't need the whole thing, so I'm just going to start out by adding a few little ones in here, just like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And just kind of put this wherever. Put a little more in here. The neat thing about stamping is that you can ink the parts of the stamp that you want to use, so you don't need to ink the whole thing. Let's just get a little more of this in here. And a few more out there. Okay, so we've got a big, growing, beautiful vine and flowers above the door. That's perfect. And now just blend this color. So dip your brush, pinch it off. Remember to always pinch your brush off. And I don't worry about getting the green into the purple or getting the sepia from the door into here. I just kind of mix all these colors up together. I think that adds a lot. Don't be afraid to pull some of this color down into the door. You know, the door, even though it's old and rustic, it's going to have a bunch of different colors in it. So it's okay to add those. Okay, so we've got that done. Let's go on to the next thing. Let's add some grasses now on the side. So we're going to add this little grass in here. We're going to ink that with a 15. Oops. Let's get this on here really good. And we're going to ink it a bunch of times, stamp it a bunch of times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see I didn't really move it very far. I sort of stamped it on top of itself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're still going 5, but we're not going across the page. We're just kind of keeping it all centered in one area. Okay, add some water to this now. And we're going to put a little flowering bush in here. Super easy to do. And this is the branch now. So we're going to ink this one. And I don't need the whole thing. So I'm going to use my sepia and just ink the base of this with the sepia. And then I'm going to ink the green, ink the rest of it in the green. So the very top of it here in the green. And I'm just going to kind of stamp it in here, just like that. Add some water to it, and I don't need to add a lot, just down here at the base, just a little tiny bit. And now we're going to take that tiny, tiny little foliage. This is that little one from the birdhouse set. Get that on here, and I'm going to use my green again, and I'm just going to add some foliage to this little shrub. Don't worry about getting this in perfect. But you want to stamp it a bunch. Just keep inking it, stamping it in here. This little guy works so well. And then we're just going to soften all this up. Remember, these lines are really tiny, so you don't want to get too much water. You're just touching it. Just touching it. Okay, I'm going to add a little more blue now to the house. Just a little bit more in here, a little darker color. Kind of mixing these two up. And I can put some more over here now. Just brush this in. And don't be afraid to add a little of that color into the door. can add lots of color in here. And when you're working with a palette, a lot of times you'll have a mix of color. That's okay too. There's always shadows going on and color that sort of reflects. So let's take this Prussian blue now and really darken these windows in. And just draw these little squares. Don't stress out about little details like this. It's better if it's not perfect. It really is. So now let's take the brush and just soften this color. Looks pretty good. Okay, let's add a little color now to this little bush. So I'm going to use the number 20. That is this really pretty magenta color. And I'm just going to ink one of these little flowers, just one. So I can choose one that's maybe not too big, just this little guy right here. And let's ink that up. And just maybe stamp it twice. You can do as much of this as you want to. It just adds a little color. Don't be afraid to stamp it over the door. Add some water to that. You know, that just pops that color out so much as soon as you hit it with the water. And it changes the shape. I love that about it too, because it changes the shape, and that's what we're going for. We don't want this to look like a stamped image. We want it to look like a little painting that's all coming together. Okay, let's add our little wildflowers in. These are those tiny little dots that look like pebbles. But we want to just ink one side. So I'm using that Prussian blue again. And I'm just going to ink one side or the other. Either one, doesn't matter. One side or the other, whichever side you're most comfortable with. And remember, we're going to walk it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just put a couple more in here, like this. And if you like that sharper image, you don't have to add any water to it. Or if you want to just blend it a little bit, the color becomes darker. You can also add a few more dots in here. Some centers. And your little pink flowers. Super cute. And we're getting finished here. You can add a little more color into your door. And I would take some of this blue, just a little bit, and kind of drag it along the front here. Pull some of that color out of the boardwalk. Just drag a little of this color out. And if you find that you've lost any lines, you can just go back and add those in as well. I use my fine tip so much on all of my markers. That's what I love about Marvy, is that the fine tip is always wet. Always wet. So we can go back in with our fine tip here. If there's any areas that need to be darkened. This, under this overhang here, this would be really, really dark. Super dark under here. So we can make that dark. The little hinges, we can accent those along this door plate here and along here where the door opens. One last thing, and that is to sign and date. Sign it, date it, put it on a card, put it in a frame, give it away. Someone will be so thrilled that you have created this for them, and you will make somebody so happy. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week.